everyone, and thank you very much for joining me today as I'm out on another of my adventures. As you can see, it's a beautiful day, perhaps a little bit colder than it actually looks in the video, but beautiful nonetheless. So today I'm out to do something a little bit different, and I'm out to try some coastal photography from a slightly different perspective than what I would normally do. I think it's fair to say that most photographs that I see that are taken at the coast are actually taken from, you could say, the coastline itself or at sea level. So people are down perhaps on the beach, they're looking for some interesting patterns in the sand to use as foreground, some rocks. They're taking in the sea and the sky as well. What I'm trying to do today is just be a little bit more creative, try something different, keep challenging myself to get some slightly different types of photographs. So to put this into some context, I'm about perhaps maybe roughly 70 feet above the actual sea level. And this is going to hopefully open up some new opportunities for me and get some coastal shots that look just a little bit different. So the type of thing that I'm imagining is that by being higher, I may find some interesting rocks in the ocean. I can look down on them and totally eliminate the sky. Now, as you can see, that could be very useful today. It's a beautiful day, but there is no cloud cover in the sky at the moment. It still looks quite nice. There's a subtle change in the colours in the sky as well. But by being up much higher, I can eliminate the sky. And if I do want to include some foreground in my image, the types of foreground that I'll find here higher up are much different to what they would actually be lower down, taking in the sand or some rocks. And if I do include the sky, my image is still going to look very different from something shot at a much lower perspective. So that's my plans for today. Hopefully find a few nice photographs, something a little bit different from the standard, and enjoy this beautiful day out. So I've been having a walk along, keeping my eyes open. I've found something here that I want to photograph. I've been keeping my eyes open for a rock or a collection of rocks out in the ocean, so I could take those just surrounded by sea with no sky, and I've not yet found that. Hopefully I will. But I've found a scene here which works very well, and obviously I can only get this composition by using a much higher perspective. If I was down low, this scene just wouldn't work if I was actually down at sea level. So I've got this nice rock behind me here with comes to quite a sharp point, and I quite like the carve of all the stones down on the actual beach, and I'm taking in a little bit of this, which I believe is gorse bushes with some nice yellow on them, down at the left of the image, and it just has some pleasing lines. The line of the gorse bushes is parallel to or pretty much parallel to some parts of the right hand side of the rock, and there's been some birds on the rock as well. Now, I'm not using a polarizer here because I really like the look of the light as it is, but I do want to slow down my shutter speed a little bit. So I'm using a 6-stop ND filter, which is slowing my shutter speed to around 1/4 of a second. Because it's such a calm day, there's pretty much no wind. The sea, as it comes in, doesn't have much force to it, so it's not really coming up the beach a large amount, but occasionally it comes in a little bit further and we see some nice white at the end of the waves. And I'm just trying to use the slightly slower shutter speed just to capture a little bit of motion as the sea hits the shoreline. So that's what I'm going for, and it's just a case of timing the shot. And there's a reasonably nice wave there, so I just took another exposure, but just trying to capture a nice moment in time really. And again, there'll be no sky in this image, so I'm visualizing a crop, something like a 3x4 or an 8x10, and I think that'll work really well for this one. having a look around a bit more, and I finally found something along the lines of what I hoped to get today. So we've got some rocks out at sea, there's some birds on them, they're surrounded obviously by the sea, and I'm able to take the image without including any sky. I don't want to point the camera around at the rocks for too long because I think there could potentially be some lens flare. The sun is quite bright coming from the direction that I'm facing at the moment. But I've taken a number of shots, some faster shutter speeds and some slower long exposures as well. So I'll show you whichever of those I prefer. But again, it's a shot that wouldn't be possible if I was at a lower vantage point, a much lower perspective. I'll be looking across at sea level and all the rocks would just blend in together. But by being at this higher vantage point, I'm able to separate out the rocks as much as possible and just see the shape of all the rocks a little bit better. But it's been an incredibly hard shot to compose. I'm in a very precarious position. I can't really move. There's a tiny little area here that I've been able to get my tripod in just behind me here. And if I go much further this way, it's quite near the cliff top. So ideally, I would have liked a bit more room to move around and fine-tune the composition a little bit more, but I'm pretty happy with the result, I think. So it's now the following day and I've come back out again. By now you'll have seen all the images that I captured yesterday. For some of those I couldn't record video. For some, because I was reacting very quickly, for example to a ship or a boat coming into the scene. And for others I was just in a very precarious position on a slope, so I couldn't really set up a tripod, or it just wasn't much room to record video. But as anyone who makes these videos will be well aware, there's a lot of time and effort put into the video and the editing process, even for a video that maybe just lasts 12 minutes. So yesterday a bit of time was took up with the video work, and at this time of year the sun drops very quickly in the sky, and even though it's a nice sunny afternoon getting into evening, the sun can just drop and the light goes. So I had to cut it short yesterday evening, but I'm back out again today. The conditions are very similar, but there's a lot more haze off in this direction, and there's some stronger wind as well. So the good positive thing is it's causing more motion in the sea. So I've reshot a few of the images I took yesterday just so I could go for a slightly different look, and I'll put those up for comparison alongside the images that I captured yesterday, and you'll see how the ones I've got today, slightly different lighting conditions and different conditions regarding the sea, so they look different. I think it's always worthwhile reshooting scenes, and I've also got some ideas in my head how I'd like to recapture these images again in the future. But for now I'm going to head off again on this sunny day and see if I can find anything else I think is going to work from this higher perspective. So at the moment I'm stood quite high up on the cliff tops here, and I don't really want to go too much in that direction, or behind me. I'm about as far to the edge that I feel comfortable going. But I've found something which was the sort of image I visualised in my head before I headed out yesterday, and that is a single rock which I'm able to just put in the centre of the image, surrounded by water. It's a really nice shape, it's triangular as well, so it just works really well being in the centre of the image. The sun is off in this direction, so I'm not going to point the camera towards the scene that I'm photographing, but it's putting some really nice highlights in the water. And I think if I'd found this scene maybe in 30 minutes time, it would have been too late, because there would have been too much sunlight on the water, it would have been too bright. But the edge of the actual rock is getting some nice backlighting from the sun, and the water looks really nice, and it's quite mesmerizing just watching the water coming over the rock with the way the sun's working to light up the water as well. So it's a really nice shot. I've got on my polarizer just turned a little bit just to take off some of the glare off the water, and I've got on my 6-stop ND filter as well. So altogether I'm trying to get something like a 1 second exposure, which is working really well, but it just looks mesmerizing to watch, so hopefully some of that will come across in my image. So I've returned back where I was earlier on to take my last shot of the day, and I think it looks quite nice. It's quite a nice image. The light is very nice on this scene, and similar to I just spoke about with the rock in the ocean, if I'd arrived here much later, perhaps in another 20 minutes, I would lose the light in my foreground. So I'm glad I found it at this time. And I think I said yesterday when recording the first section of this video that even if I take some shots from this higher perspective and include the foreground, it's going to look very different to what my foreground would be lower down, and that's very much true here. In this case I'm nice and high up. I've got some of these wonderful grasses which are blowing in the wind, and I've got plenty of light on them. Lower down, much of the area just over this cliff is in shadow. So what I'm trying to do here is capture some of the atmosphere that I'm feeling at the moment, and it is very cold. That maybe won't come across in the video due to the nice light, but it is getting very cold and the wind's picking up. I've got these really nice grasses which are just being lit by the setting sun, and there's a subtle sort of curve in the top of the cliff here in the grasses, just in this section here, and I'm using that to nicely frame some of the rocks off in the distance down in the sea there. And as the grass comes up on that edge there, I've positioned the camera so it almost joins in with the curvature of the rocks over to the right of the image. So I've got this sort of line that comes round and curves right back out to that interesting rock way off in the sea. So that's what I've been trying to achieve in terms of the composition, and this is going to be my final shot of this little 2-day journey and adventure, so I hope you like it. So I hope you've enjoyed watching this video where I've been concentrating on trying some coastal photography from a higher perspective. I think it's always interesting and keeps your photography fresh to try and be creative and just try different thoughts and ideas. But if you've enjoyed watching, please do consider giving the video a like rating, and if you like the content and would like to see more but you're not yet subscribed to my channel, do consider subscribing. But as always, thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate it, and hopefully I'll see you in my next video.